The shocking revelation. The Grand Hyatt Ballroom, sparkled with crystal chandeliers and filled with the soft murmur of Seattle's business elite. Elena Martinez stood backstage, her hands trembling slightly as she smoothed her elegant navy dress. 5 years of preparation had led to this moment, but nothing could have prepared her for the sight she had glimpsed through the curtain moments earlier. Alexander Kane sat at table 12, his dark suit immaculate as always, but his face bore the weight of recent struggles. "Mommy, why are you shaking?" Emma whispered, tugging at Elena's dress. The 5-year-old wore a beautiful pink dress, her blonde hair styled in careful curls that reminded Elena painfully of her own childhood dreams of fairy tale endings. "I'm just nervous, sweetheart," Elena replied, kneeling to straighten Ethan's tiny bow tie. The boy fidgeted impatiently, his dark eyes scanning the busy backstage area with curiosity that mirrored his father's intensity. Maria appeared beside them, clipboard in hand and a reassuring smile on her face. "The mayor just finished his speech. You're up in 2 minutes. Remember, you've earned this." Every word of your acceptance speech comes from the heart and from 5 years of incredible work. Elena nodded, taking deep breaths to calm her racing pulse. She had practiced her speech dozens of times, but now the words felt foreign on her tongue. How could she talk about overcoming adversity and building success from failure when the man who had caused her greatest pain sat just beyond the curtain? "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed across the ballroom, "please welcome this year's Entrepreneur of the Year, founder and CEO of Phoenix Solutions, Elena Martinez." The applause was thunderous. Elena walked onto the stage with practiced confidence, her chin raised and shoulders back. The bright lights made it difficult to see individual faces in the audience, which helped steady her nerves. She reached the podium and adjusted the microphone, her speech cards trembling slightly in her hands. "5 years ago," she began, her voice clear and strong, "I was told I would never amount to anything. I was called a thief, a liar, and a fraud by someone I trusted. I lost my job, my reputation, and nearly lost my faith in myself." In the audience, Alexander Kane sat frozen in his chair. The woman on stage was Elena, but transformed. Gone was the uncertain young woman who had organized his life and managed his home. This Elena commanded attention, spoke with authority, and radiated a confidence that took his breath away. "But sometimes," Elena continued, "our greatest failures become the foundation for our greatest successes. Phoenix Solutions was born from those ashes of humiliation and rejection. We have helped 43 small businesses grow and thrive, creating over 800 jobs in our community." The applause interrupted her speech, but Elena's eyes had found Alexander's table. For just a moment, their gazes locked across the crowded ballroom. She saw recognition, shock, and something that might have been regret flash across his features. "This award belongs not just to me, but to every entrepreneur who has been told they're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy. Enough. We prove them wrong not with words, but with results." Elena held up the crystal award, and the audience rose to their feet. The applause was deafening, but at that moment of triumph, disaster struck. Emma and Ethan, who had been watching from the side of the stage, got excited by the celebration and ran toward their mother. "Mommy, you won," Emma called out, her voice carrying across the silent microphone as the applause died down. "We're so proud of you," Ethan added, wrapping his small arms around Elena's legs. The ballroom fell completely silent. 500 pairs of eyes focused on the 2 children who had appeared beside the podium. Elena felt her heart stop as she realized what had just happened. The twins stood in the bright spotlight, their faces clearly visible to everyone in the audience. At table 12, Alexander Kane gripped his water glass so tightly his knuckles turned white. The resemblance was unmistakable. Emma had Elena's blonde hair and delicate features, but her eyes were the same deep brown as his own. Ethan could have been Alexander at age 5, with the same dark hair, the same determined jawline, the same way of tilting his head when curious. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. Elena quickly took each child's hand and smiled at the audience. "I'd like you to meet my greatest achievements," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "My children, Emma and Ethan. They remind me every day why we work so hard. To build better futures." The audience applauded politely, but Elena could feel the shift in energy. People were whispering, pointing, calculating dates in their heads. At table 12, Alexander's business partner leaned over and whispered something that made Alexander's face go pale. "How old are they?" Someone called out from the audience, though Elena couldn't identify the speaker. 5 years old, Elena replied, lifting her chin defiantly. "They've been my inspiration since the day they were born." More whispers rippled through the crowd. Elena knew that everyone was doing the math, remembering the scandal 5 years ago when she had been fired from Kane Industries amid accusations of corporate espionage. The timing was too perfect to be coincidental. Alexander stood abruptly from his table, causing his chair to scrape loudly against the floor. Elena watched as he made his way toward the exit, his face a mask of controlled emotion. But just before he reached the doors, he turned back for one more look at the stage. Emma waved at him with the innocent friendliness of a child who didn't understand the complexity of adult emotions. "Hi, mister," she called out cheerfully. Alexander stopped. Walking. For a moment that stretched into eternity, father and daughter looked at each other across the crowded ballroom. Elena saw the exact moment when recognition and realization crashed over him like a wave. Then, Alexander turned and pushed through the exit doors, leaving Elena alone on the stage with the two most important people in her world and 500 witnesses to what had just become the biggest scandal. Seattle's business community had seen ears dot as Elena guided the twins off the stage. Her mind raced with the implications of what had just happened. The secret she had guarded so carefully for 5 years was now public knowledge. Tomorrow morning, every gossip columnist and business reporter in the city would be speculating about Alexander Kane's connection to Elena Martinez's children. "Mommy," Ethan whispered as they walked toward the backstage area. "Why did that man look so sad when he saw us?" Elena's heart broke a little more. "Sometimes adults have complicated feelings, sweetheart," she replied, not knowing how to explain that the sad man was their father, and that their carefully constructed world was about to change forever. In his car outside the hotel, Alexander sat with his hands gripping the steering wheel, his breathing shallow and rapid. The private investigator's file lay open on the passenger seat beside him, 5 years of searching finally bearing fruit. But the truth was more overwhelming than he had ever imagined. He had missed everything. First steps, first words, birthdays, Christmas mornings, scraped knees, bedtime stories. 5 years of being a father without knowing it, while Elena had raised their children alone, building a successful business and a stable life without his help or support. That the weight of his actions 5 years ago crashed down on him with devastating clarity. He had not just lost the woman he loved. He had lost his children. And now, seeing them for the first time, he wasn't sure if any amount of regret could bridge the gap his mistakes had created. The truth unveiled. Alexander Kane sat in his penthouse office at 3 a.m, staring at the city lights through floor-to-ceiling windows. The events at the award ceremony 3 days ago played on repeat in his mind like a broken film. Real. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emma's innocent wave and Ethan's curious expression. His children. The twins he never knew existed. His phone buzzed with another call from a reporter, the 15th one since the story broke. Social media was ablaze with speculation about the Kane hair scandal. Stock prices had dropped another 12% as investors worried about the personal drama affecting the company's already shaky performance. The office door opened without a knock, which meant only one person had arrived. Victoria Sterling swept in wearing a designer coat and the cold expression she reserved for crisis management. Her red hair was pulled back severely, and her green eyes held the calculating look that had once impressed Alexander in business meetings. "We need to contain this situation immediately," Victoria announced, settling into the chair across from his desk. "My public relations team has drafted 3 different strategies to minimize the damage to your reputation and the company's stock value." Alexander didn't look away from the window. "What if I don't want to minimize anything? What if the story is true?" Victoria's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Don't be ridiculous, Alexander. That woman is clearly trying to extort money from you. She probably researched your timeline and calculated when to claim the children were conceived. It's textbook gold-digging behavior." "She never asked for money," Alexander said quietly. "In 5 years, she never contacted me once." "Because she was building her case," Victoria insisted. "Creating a successful business, establishing credibility, waiting for the perfect moment to strike." The award ceremony was obviously staged for maximum impact. Alexander finally turned to face his business partner and former fiancée. Their engagement had ended 2 years ago when he realized he could never love her the way she deserved, though. They had remained business partners. Now, looking at Victoria's perfectly composed features, he felt a distance that had nothing to do with their romantic history. "I want a DNA test," he said simply. Victoria's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something that might have been panic before her controlled expression returned. "That's exactly what she wants. Legal recognition, child support, a claim to your fortune. Alexander, you built this company from nothing. Don't let some opportunistic woman destroy everything you've worked for, the same way you said she was. Trying to destroy it 5 years ago when you convinced me she was stealing corporate secrets?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Victoria's face went pale, but she recovered quickly. "That situation was completely different. We had evidence." "Did we?" Alexander stood up and walked to his safe, extracting a thick manila folder. "Because my private investigator finally found some interesting security footage from 5 years ago. Footage that shows you in my home office at 2 in the morning, 3 days before Elena was fired." Victoria's composure cracked completely. "Alexander, I can explain. The timestamp shows you accessing my computer and printing confidential documents. The same documents that were later found in Elena's belongings." Alexander's voice was deadly. "Calm. There's also footage of you entering her quarters while she was working in the garden." A silence stretched between them like a chasm. Victoria stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the marble floor. "You hired investigators to spy on me?" "I hired investigators to find Elena 5 years ago. They've been working this case ever since." Alexander opened the folder and spread photographs across his desk. Bank records showing payments from our competitors to an offshore account in your name. Email communications between you and Randall Industries discussing confidential Kane Industries projects. Even recordings of phone calls where you provided them with our bidding strategies. Victoria's face transformed from pale to flushed as the evidence mounted before her eyes. "You don't understand the pressure I was under," she said, her voice breaking. "The company was expanding too fast. Your father was pushing for results, and you were so distracted by that girl. I was trying to keep us afloat. By selling our secrets to competitors and framing Elena for your crimes? She was going to ruin everything." Victoria's composure shattered completely. "You were falling in love with her. I could see it every day, the way you looked at her, The way you smiled when she walked into a room. She was going to take you away from me, away from everything we had built together. Alexander felt the last pieces of the puzzle fall into place. So you destroyed her life to protect your own interests. I protected our company, Victoria shot back. I protected your reputation. I protected your future. You destroyed my future, Alexander said quietly. You cost me 5 years with my children. You made me miss their first steps, their first words, every birthday, every Christmas morning. You made Elena raise them alone while I grieved for a woman I thought had betrayed me. Victoria backed toward the door, her designer heels clicking against the marble. Alexander, please. We can fix this. We can make Elena sign a non-disclosure agreement. We can pay her whatever she wants to keep quiet. Get out, Alexander said, his voice barely above a whisper. Security will escort you from the building. Your access cards are already deactivated. Your personal belongings will be boxed and sent to your apartment. You can't do this to me, Victoria protested. I own 30% of this company. Check your contract, Alexander replied. The morality clause you insisted on including works both ways. Corporate espionage and fraud are grounds for immediate termination and forfeiture of all equity positions. Victoria stared at him in shock, then turned and fled from the office. Alexander listened to her footsteps echoing down the hallway until the elevator doors closed, taking her out of his life forever. Alone again, Alexander returned to his desk and picked up his phone. His fingers hesitated over the keypad for several minutes before he finally dialed Elena's number, which his investigator had provided along with her address, work schedule, and the twin school information. The phone rang 4 times before Elena's cautious voice answered. Hello? Elena, it's Alexander. Please don't hang up. The silence stretched so long he thought she had disconnected, but finally she spoke. What do you want? I know the truth about what happened 5 years ago. I know Victoria framed you. I know about the corporate espionage, the planted evidence, everything. His voice broke slightly. I know I destroyed the life of an innocent woman and missed 5 years with my children because I was too blind to see what was happening right in front of me. Another long pause. It's too late, Alexander. Is it too late for Emma and Ethan to know their father? Elena's sharp intake of breath was audible through the phone. Don't use their names. You don't get to use their names. They're my children too, Elena. I can see myself in their faces, in their expressions. Emma has your kindness, but she tilts her head the same way I do when I'm thinking. Ethan has my eyes, but he has your gentle spirit. You saw them for 30 seconds on a stage, and in those 30 seconds, I fell in love with them completely, Alexander said honestly. The same way I fell in love with their mother years ago, only I was too stupid and too trusting to protect what mattered most. Elena was quiet for so long that Alexander began to think she had hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with tears she was trying not to shed. I won't let you hurt them the way you hurt me. I know I don't deserve a chance, Alexander said. I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness. But Elena, they deserve to know their father. And maybe, if you'll let me, I can spend the rest of my life trying to make up for the years I've already lost. The line went quiet again, and this time Alexander heard the soft click of disconnection. But as he sat in his empty office surrounded by the evidence of Victoria's betrayal, he felt something he hadn't experienced in 5 years. Hope. Tomorrow, he would begin the most important campaign of his life. Not to win back a business deal or recover stock prices, but to earn the trust of the woman he had wronged and the love of the children he had never known he had.